Well, we talked about Chris Bassitt yesterday, and was that going to be his final start? Well, now he's spoken out about game 162.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. But for Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode's brought to you by Booking.com. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. As always, I'm Braden Iwasko. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5Iwasko, Carter First 2, and Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays as well. If you're new here on YouTube or you've been watching for a long time, make sure you drop that subscribe button. It really helps us out. If you're listening anywhere else, make sure you go over to the YouTube, you hit the subscribe button, you hit the notification bell so that when we go live, you guys are the first ones to know about all the Blue Jays news and information. I guess we'll start here. We're going live Sunday for game 162. And we're just going to break down everything. We'll go live right from the first pitch. We're going to talk to you guys, answer your guys' questions, have some fun. I don't know. It's the end of the season. Let's have a good time. Let's talk baseball, the offseason, a little bit of 2025. We'll break it all down. We got a lot to get into today. Chris Bassitt has made a statement on game 162, so we'll talk about that. And then, of course, we're going to break down the AL just in general. How is it going to shape up for the last little bit here of the season? Carter, you found this this quote from Chris Bassitt. I'll put it up on the screen, but do you have anything to precursor this?
No, not much. I guess I could give a little bit of a backstory before we do go into it. So yesterday we talked about Chris Bassitt, and we talked about if he was going to make his 162 start. We also talked about how his command has been a little bit of an issue. That isn't necessarily the correlation to this episode. So Chris Bassitt, and just with the entire rotation in this last little bit, I would say the last third of the year, give or take, John Schneider has decided, and Pete Walker, among others, decided to go to a 6-man rotation. And what they're doing here is they have 5 of their starters going, and then they have 1 bullpen day. So they've been doing this for a fair amount of time. But obviously, Chris Bassitt wants to pitch. From this article, we'll get into that more as well. But that was our debate yesterday, is if Chris Bassitt, the mental aspect of the game is affecting him. Does he want to be out there with the current state of the Toronto Blue Jays? So he goes in and has a quote about just his stance on pitching for 162 and if he's ready to go for that game. So I guess you can throw it on the screen, but I'll also read it out here just in case some of the Blue Jays fans maybe out there can't read. I know Braden didn't know how to read until he was in grade 9. So don't feel bad if you're having trouble. So I'll start here. The bullpen is not going to cover my game. That's not going to happen. I don't think there's another option. Who's going to start? Ryan Yarbrough. He's going into free agency. That's not fair to him to have the bullpen cover 9 innings. That's not fair to them. I'm healthy. I'm good. So I'm going to start. I don't believe in just because it's the last game and we're out of it, I shouldn't throw. I think that's kind of, I wouldn't say embarrassing, but it's not fair to the bullpen to say, hey, he's not going to throw anymore. You guys are going to have to throw. So, Braden, I'm just going to throw it over to you. Just immediate reactions to this quote by Chris Bassitt.
Yeah, so I understand what he's saying. And obviously, he didn't end the season the way that he wanted to. He wants to go out there and he wants to have a good outing to cap off 2024 and sort of we're going to call it the lost season here, I think. The lost season of 2024. And he wants that start, and I understand that. I didn't overly care for him throwing out the piece about Ryan Yarbrough. I mean, if you're going to say anybody, you say the bullpen in general. You don't want to single guys out. I don't think that was the best look of all time. You can take that sort of how you want it. I didn't really. That's saying that he's not coming back. Chris Bassitt doesn't care about Yarbrough. I mean, you're still on the same team as the guy. You don't know what's going to happen next year. So a little bit iffy on those parts specifically. But I think overall, I understand the wanting to pitch. You didn't finish the season how you wanted to. So I think you want to go out there and make sure your last start's a good one. And we'll get into Bowdin's start in this past game here, Carter. That's the way you want to finish your season, not the way Chris Bassitt did. So obviously he's going to be hungry for an extra start. Will it happen? Will it not happen? I don't know. It's going to be a question for John Schneider for sure, and to make the final decision on that.
I love seeing Chris Bassitt being fired up about pitching. I said it yesterday. Chris Bassett's going to go out there. He wants to play baseball. And like you said, I think that's a very good point. Chris Bassitt is a guy that's definitely going to remember his last start kind of being a little bit of a stinker, obviously having the highest amount of walks in his career. So with that little bit of a mental thing for Chris Bassitt going into next season would definitely help with his confidence if he does get that 162 start. And Chris Bassitt is a guy that's been adaptable. He can go if he has 7 days rest. He can go with 5 days rest. He could probably go with 4 days rest as well. So I get what he's saying in this article. I think it's kind of getting mixed up. It's a little bit of just what the news does to some of these quotes. I think he's making it seem like that he has something against Ryan Yarbrough. He's kind of trying to throw him under the bus, but I don't really see that as the case. The way I see Chris Bassitt viewing this is that Ryan Yarbrough is not with the Toronto Blue Jays next year. Chris Bassitt is with the Toronto Blue Jays this year. So what he's kind of saying is he's putting Ryan Yarbrough ahead of the Toronto Blue Jays. So it's just, I guess, good teammate move, you could say. He's giving Ryan Yarbrough that respect that if he does want to test out the free agency market, that he doesn't want to just use him for these innings that are in a per se meaningless game. That's pretty much what Chris Bassitt said. Game that they're pitching in, that they're out of it. So if Ryan Yarbrough wants to go test free agency, he's thrown his most innings over the last 3 seasons this year. So if he adds on another 4 or 5 innings in that last start, again, it's something that has a low chance of happening, but there is a chance of Ryan Yarbrough getting injured. But on the other side of it, Ryan Yarbrough is also on your baseball team. This is how it's been going for a very long time. Ryan Yarbrough has been a major leaguer for an extended period of time as well. Is one start going to give him the injury bug? Don't want to speculate about people getting injured and stuff like that. But I think Chris Bassett's just more so looking out for Ryan Yarbrough if he wants to test out his free agency market. Doesn't want anything bad to happen to him while Chris Bassitt is still with the team. So he's just kind of, I guess, in a sense, taking one on the chin for Ryan Yarbrough.
That's completely BS to me. I don't believe that for 1 second. Chris Bassitt wants the innings. He wants the innings. Saying that you don't want Ryan Yarbrough to get injured, a guy that's going to be a free agent, rather than you who has a lockdown contract, that's complete BS to me. I don't believe that for 1 second. The niceness of being nice for that sake doesn't compute with me. That reasoning doesn't even make sense to me. If he's going to test out free agency, he probably wants the innings to make an impression. So I don't think this is a looking out for Ryan Yarbrough. I don't necessarily think it's shade at Ryan Yarbrough. I think it's more so the fact that Chris Bassitt wants the innings and wants to make that start for his own personal reasons, not for the lookout for Ryan Yarbrough, personally.
More so, it probably is the personal. Chris Bassitt just wants to throw the innings. He wants to have a good cap to the end of this year. But yeah, he did say he's going into free agency. It's not fair to him. Like, you're getting paid millions of dollars to pitch in the MLB in that sense. If Ryan Yarbrough has to throw another 4 or 5 innings, not going to kill him. So I agree with you there. Again, the quote, they do add some things here. Again, this was a quote straight from Chris Bassitt. So just the way it was kind of typed out, though, and punctuated does kind of make it seem like he's throwing shade at Ryan Yarbrough. That's what these news stories are looking for. There's not a lot of going on in Toronto Blue Jays baseball right now, so they're trying to get the clicks where they can. Again, it's nice that you see Chris Bassitt show some emotion here. Obviously, knows that it was a very disappointing season. He signed with the Toronto Blue Jays expecting them to be a playoff team, probably for his entire tenure over his 3 years. Obviously, it did not happen this year. A vet that wants to win. So I like this in a sense. Again, maybe he could have communicated this a little bit better, but I think it's getting spun in the wrong way. I think Chris Bassitt just wants his innings. And honestly, if that's going to help him for the 2025 season, I'm all on board. Ryan Yarbrough is not a sure thing. He is a free agent. You don't know if you're going to re-sign him. So if Chris Bassitt, this is going to help his confidence in any sort of way. I think anything that can help the Toronto Blue Jays for the future, you got to do it for him.
Yeah, and I that's what I think too. I think that throwing Chris Bassitt in this situation does more for your ball club than not throwing him. In the same respect as John Schneider, do you want to walk out Chris Bassitt to start the final game that means nothing? Probably not. You'd probably rather throw a guy like Ryan Yarbrough in, and then at least if there is an injury, God forbid, to anybody, at least it's not a guy that's going to be, a big component of your baseball team next season.
Yeah, if you're looking at it from a Toronto Blue Jays perspective, you probably want Ryan Yarbrough to pitch this game, especially if you have no plans of signing him. Because, again, it's going to sound bad, but in the Blue Jays' perspective, if Ryan Yarbrough gets hurt in this game, no real fault to them. It's not really going to affect them for next season. If Chris Bassitt somehow suffers a fluke injury, that's going to hurt. That's not going to be good for the next season. But like these guys are veterans. This is at the point of the season. You have 4 games left. I feel like you just probably talk to these two guys. This shouldn't be something that is this public for the media. It's becoming a big story. This is just something that if Chris Bassitt would probably literally just talk to Ryan Yarbrough if he wanted to, and be like, "Hey, you want to go this game? Like, I really want this start. I want to just end my season on a good note. Yada yada yada. Whatever it is." A lot of these pitchers, like at this point of the season, they shouldn't really care. It's nice to see that they care. It's like to see that their emotion is high, but I mean, I would love to see the Blue Jays win a game. Maybe Chris Bassitt showing that emotion might get the Toronto Blue Jays a win with 162 with this 5-game losing streak. So maybe it would be a good thing that Chris Bassitt pitches. But I mean, I think this is just getting blown out of proportion.
I think so too, and I don't really understand why that he went to the media, or not that he went to the media, but sort of revealed some of this stuff. This seems like you said, an in-house conversation that should have been had way before any media was talked about here, because this is exactly what happens. We get the article written, we talk about it, and then there's going to be 19 Instagram posts tomorrow that are going to pop up on our feed about this.
And then there's going to be some spin zones that saying Chris Bassitt's mad. The Toronto Blue Jays organization say he doesn't start for the last game of the season. And it's going to be some internal conflict with the Toronto Blue Jays. And then there's going to be people just kind of gossiping about some drama going on in the Toronto Blue Jays clubhouse. Like, these guys are adults. They're not going to be worried about a start in a meaningless game. Maybe if this was a playoff game and they were battling for a start, there might be a little bit more emotion here. But for 2 veterans that have been in the league for this long, I don't think that they're going to care too much whether they do or don't get their way in the situation.
No, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. I mean, again, all of this is speculation because John Schneider has not come out and said Ryan Yarbrough is getting the start or Chris Bassitt's going to get the start. So again, we'll wait and see. We're going to keep you guys updated, but we're at the point now where, Carter, does it really even matter to you or me? Like, yeah, I'd like to go see Chris Bassitt rather than Ryan Yarbrough, but at the end of the day, I mean, I just don't care.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to matter. It's nice for the last game of the year. We're going to be live for that, so it probably would be nice to have a hometown guy with Chris Bassitt, a guy that's going to be on the team for next season. For me, at this point of the year, we'll obviously get into this more in the next couple segments. I just want to win on the last game of the year. I just want the same thing. What Chris Bassitt might want is just a good taste in my mouth, or just something that's not what's been happening in the last, honestly, few weeks of the Toronto Blue Jays season, especially the last 5 days of this 5-game losing streak. But that's pretty much all I got on Chris Bassitt. Again, we're going to have to see how this unfolds. Maybe there will be more storylines about this. I'm sure there will be. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't read into too much of this if you are a Toronto Blue Jays fan. They're going to be just fine. This is just the media try to stir some things up with the Toronto Blue Jays to get some excitement to end the year. So honestly, at the end of the day, I can't hate on it too much. I'm the one that said I want John Schneider to get kicked out of a baseball game to provide the fans with some entertainment. Obviously, I was a little bit disappointed with how he did it. But again, if he wants to get kicked out again, maybe start throwing some bases, throwing some bats. I'm definitely going to be one to get behind that. But Brayden, you have anything else to add about this Chris Bassitt situation?
No, not really. I think we've covered everything we've needed to cover. Like Carter said, and we've been sort of doubling down on here, we're going to be live Sunday at the first pitch of the game. We'll be live. We'll watch the game with you. We'll answer some questions. We'll talk to you guys. Just have a good time. It's the last game of the season. We all just want to have a good time at the end of the day and watch some good baseball. So we'll talk about 2025 a little bit. We'll go a little bit over this season. Just sort of talk about whatever you guys are throwing around for questions. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back, and then we're going to talk about the AL and just how things are looking to shape up for the end of the season. Today's episode brought to you by Booking.com. Explore those U.S. cities you've secretly wanted to learn more about, or other baseball cities. Maybe it's time to taste test your baseball competition stadium cuisine. Luckily, on Booking.com, you can find stadium stay that's just right for you. With Booking.com's wide variety of choices across the U.S., you can go incognito to all your baseball rival cities. I always talk about it. We went to New York. We went to Minneapolis. We've been, all over the place watching baseball games, and Booking.com is the best way to use it, at least in my opinion. It makes it easy, fast, and it sort of has all the choices readily available. Booking.com delivers the exact right U.S. stays for you. Booking.com can help you book a stay that's close to your home teams or rivals' stadiums. Make sure you guys check out Booking.com, Booking.yeah. Today's episode also brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel, I always talk about it. One of my favorite apps on my phone. Just won like $70 yesterday betting on football. Absolutely electric evening for myself. So when you get the hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I always talk about this, the live same game parlays. It's the best place to hit bets, I find, because you can see the trends, you can see what's happening. Okay, I'm going to go here. I'm going to go here. It's great. That's why I love the live same games. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. So, Carter, obviously, the Blue Jays aren't making the playoffs, right? They're not even in the hunt. They're officially eliminated. And we've known this for a while. This is where we were going to get to. But let's take a quick, we don't like to go all MLB all the time. We want to keep it pretty Blue Jays centric. But, I mean, it's tough not to talk about it, right? It's getting towards the playoffs. If it's the race to see who gets the last couple wild card spots. So, Carter, I'm just going to quickly break down where everybody's sort of sitting, at least in the AL, because, I mean, the NL, I just don't care. I mean, we'll see what happens, but, I mean, I just don't care. I'm more focused on the AL. That's where the Jays are going to be battling. And we're going to talk about, could have the Jays possibly slid in? Was this the year to do it? But first, Carter, I'm going to break it all down. Give me your thoughts, opinions, whatever. Obviously, the Yankees leading it off in the number one slot, 92-65. Then the Guardians, 91-67. With the Astros taking the third one at 86-72. Then we go into the wild card. The Orioles, 87-70. The Tigers, 83-74. The Royals, 83-74. And then a couple teams still in the hunt, the Minnesota Twins are at 81-76. The Mariners, 81-77. And the Red Sox still clinging to dear life, 80-78. Carter, just where teams sit right now. If you had to bet on that final two wild card spots, are you putting Detroit in there?
I think you have to, especially after what happened today, yesterday, the day that we're recording this. But the Tigers win, the Royals win. You get a tough loss by the Twins. You can't lose to the Miami Marlins at this point in the year. Just can't do it, especially when you're seeing that out-of-town scoreboard not helping you out. And then the Red Sox, I mean, it's nice to play in the Jays. It's definitely helping them out. I don't think they're in it either. I really want to see the Mariners in the playoffs. I think the Mariners probably would have put up a little bit better of a fight than the Detroit Tigers, but I do think that's going to be Detroit and KC. I think Detroit's probably going to end up getting that third spot. They're probably going to have to end up going to Houston. I don't really see them going anywhere, but it is a fun team to see in the playoffs. I like that there is a couple new teams in the wildcard spot. Kansas City, obviously not being a very good team last year. Doing something this year. I can maybe see them upsetting the Baltimore Orioles if it does come down to that. But again, there is still a couple more games left in the season. But taking it back to the Toronto Blue Jays, looking at this, going into this year saying, the Kansas City Royals, the Detroit Tigers are going to make the wild card spot. You would think, the Toronto Blue Jays are probably got the first wild card spot locked down then. There isn't even a question. And even looking at the Minnesota Twins, looking at the Detroit Tigers, they have literally probably the worst team I've ever seen with my own two eyes in this division, in the Chicago White Sox. That is a lot of free wins. You're playing these teams a significant amount of times, with 13 times now in your division. That should be 13 free wins. If you're not going 11-2 at minimum, I mean, that's 9 games above 500 right there. You look at the Toronto Blue Jays. Is there anyone right now under 500 other than the Jays? I know the Rays and the Red Sox are close. I think the Red Sox now are over thanks to the Jays. But when you look at these divisions here, I mean, how fun would it be to be in the AL Central, man? Just unbelievable. You get some free wins there. But obviously, it's the Toronto Blue Jays didn't perform at the end of the day. So you can say, what if? You can hope for everything in the world. When you don't perform, when you don't do anything in offseason transactions, I mean, we shouldn't have been surprised that we're ending the season in this spot.
Yeah, Carter, and we always talk about how bad we think the AL Central is, right? 4 of 5 teams are better than the top than the bottom 3 teams in the AL East. It's not that they're not having bad years. Yes, there are some easier wins when you're playing the White Sox and teams like that. But the real sort of question mark to look around is the AL West right now. 3 teams already eliminated. The Rangers, surprisingly horrible. The Athletics, I mean, knowingly horrible. And the Angels, I mean, they can't figure things out. But yeah, this was a season, looking back at it, you sort of want the Blue Jays to capitalize. And yes, it would have been difficult playing the Orioles or playing the Yankees for sure, and having to battle it out with those 2 teams. But like we always talk about, if you can get into the playoffs, anything can happen. Best of 7 baseball, right? Best of 7 baseball, anything can happen. It's not the NFL where it's one game. I mean, that's even more so crazy where anything can happen. But it's not the NHL. It's not the NBA. This is baseball. It's so day to day that if the Blue Jays could have slipped in this year, they might have been able to go on a little stretch. But nope, not even giving us any hope.
Well, especially when you're like looking at the teams in the AL this year. When I look at last year and I look at like the Baltimore Orioles last year, when I look at a team like the Texas Rangers, when I look at the Houston Astros last year, I think those teams are more well built and more well rounded than the teams right now. You look at the Yankees; their bullpen's still struggling. The Orioles recently just haven't been able to hit baseballs. They're on a little bit of a skid right now. The Astros are still a team that's going to be kicking around. The Detroit Tigers, they don't have the biggest bats of all time in their lineups. I do like the Royals. I think their depth is probably going to hurt them a little bit as well. In theory, you look at the Toronto Blue Jays on paper, you think they make a couple moves in the offseason. You get a Vladdy year, you get Bo Bichette doing literally anything, George Springer, who will have to get into the offseason. You get some decent years from these guys, even slightly above average years. This could have been a year where you take over the AL. Again, maybe we're being delusional looking at the Toronto Blue Jays team. I think definitely are being I'm saying a million games under 500. Just with this last little stretch and this last little bit, we've been doing some self-reflecting. You'd think the Toronto Blue Jays would be in contention at the start of this year. Again, we talk about how the Detroit Tigers maybe aren't the greatest team of all time. When you look at a lot of these head-to-head records against the Toronto Blue Jays, I think the only one in this playoff race that the Toronto Blue Jays actually beat this season were the Seattle Mariners. You look at the Twins, I'm pretty sure they lost the season series. Detroit Tigers definitely lost the season series. Kansas City Royals definitely lost the season series. Astros lost. You look at pretty much every single team here. The Toronto Blue Jays lost the season series. So they had the opportunity to win games. Obviously, did not end up doing that. So I don't think we can discredit teams in the playoff hunt right now. And the teams that are actually in a playoff spot when the Toronto Blue Jays did not put their money where their mouth was.
Absolutely. And not I don't think either of us are saying that, discrediting them. We see where the Toronto Blue Jays are at. But we're seeing, if you take a look last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever you want to say, you sort of expect this team to be in over some of these teams. It's just the expectation going in, 8th highest payroll in baseball. At the start of the season, you just expected it, and just it doesn't work out. And I mean, that's baseball. Teams have off years. Teams have great years unexpectedly. And I guess we're just going to have to see sort of where the Toronto Blue Jays fall in 2025. We talk so much about moves being made and guys being acquired, and we're just going to have to see if Atkins and Rogers can pull the trigger on some of these things. And we're going to dive really deep into this. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of question marks. We've done some circling and some red arrows all over the place, trying to figure out who and where fit where on this Toronto Blue Jays team. So we're going to get into all that, but man, yeah, just looking back at this season, calling it the lost season might just be the, more true than anything ever said.
Yeah, after this year, I debatably never want to talk about this season ever again, unless it's like Bowdin Francis resurgence. Maybe that when Bowdin Francis was born, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. maybe turning things around, having his consistent career. Maybe this is the start of the 30 home run streak. So again, there's some things that we could look back at and take some positives from, but overall, completely lost season. Don't want to think about how the pitching was. Don't want to think about how the offense was at the start of the season. Just move on and hopefully move on to better things in 2025. Because I definitely don't think I could take another season of this. I'm sure a lot of other Toronto Blue Jays fans cannot either, especially with all that we were promised throughout the 2020s. But we do have a game to preview, the bullpen rotation. The Blue Jays taking this tankathon very seriously. A lot of things to go into, a lot of Toronto Blue Jays news as we end off this year. Got a couple more things to go into, but we're going to take a short break. We'll be at you with all this other Blue Jays content coming up.
Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. I always talk about how great Game Time is because this is where I get my tickets to every event. They give you the cheapest option. They give you the seat view, which I always talk about, which I love. I want to know where I'm sitting. I want to know what ticket I'm buying, if it's worth it. And Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes it getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. You don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I always talk about this. When I buy tickets, I don't have to be searching up and down the list trying to find the best deal. I just want to see the best deal in front of me, click it, and I'm good to go. As I always say, they gave so many different options and deals. They also have the lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Well, Carter, I mean, we're at the point, we're at the point in Blue Jays land here where I don't expect there to be a lot of news, but somehow Toronto media just always decides to blow things out of proportion and get us talking. And sure enough, they did that today again with the Chris Bassitt stuff. But Carter, we do have, the last game of the Red Sox series. And yes, in my heart of hearts, I want the Blue Jays to win. But also, it's probably better if they don't and they just commit to the tankathon. But, it's sort of where we're at, right? It's Gausman. I want to see him cook. Final start of the year. I just want to see him throw well.
Yeah, we're at the point where I'm just holding out for a game that or the last game of the year where we win. That's all I want. I want one more win. I don't care about these next 3 games. The last game of the year, the Sunday game, when we're live, want them to win that game. At least we'll remember that the Toronto Blue Jays won the last game of the year and they won the first game of the year. We'll take that as our little victory, I guess, to end the season. But before we talk about tomorrow, or talk about today's game, I should say, let's talk about the game that happened yesterday. So just looking at this, Toronto Blue Jays, again, lose their 5th straight to an AL East opponent, 2nd straight to the Boston Red Sox. This one going into extra innings, just can't pull it off, unfortunately. I don't have a lot to say about the hitters in this game. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. would have been so awesome if he did end up launching in the bottom of the 10th there. Would have put the Blue Jays over the top, would have got them the win in extras. But again, talk about our guy, the guy that we always get excited about to watch and pitch for the Toronto Blue Jays, and that is Bowdin Francis. This guy, again, being on a pitch count, thrown over 100 innings now on the season, going over a start here, 5 innings, 3 hits given up, 4 strikeouts, 1 walk, ERA down to 3.30 on the year. Best on the Toronto Blue Jays. Again, it's a little bit lower, smaller of a sample size, but this guy has been an absolute dog since the All-Star break. It's the turnaround for Bowdin Francis has been absolutely insane. This is a great way to cap off his season. Probably could have went 6 or 7 if he was on his full pitch count. Just an insane display from Bowdin Francis, and it's impossible to not have this guy in your Blue Jays starting rotation for 2025.
No, what a great end of the season for him. I mean, if we talk about confidence moving into 2025, this has to be the ultimate confidence builder for Bowdin Francis. Great end to his season, just electric, Carter, and a guy that we sort of loved coming up and we're praying to be good. And finally, we're sort of seeing the fruits of the labor here for Bowdin Francis. So great on him. I'm going to be excited to watch him in 2025 when hopefully the offense is there to back him up.
Well, even John Schneider decided to give him his flowers in the post-game press conference, saying that the impression he has left on us is that he is going to be a starting pitcher in the big leagues. Thanks, John. John, I appreciate that. That's good thing we have you reporting straight to the fans. But yeah, that should be fairly obvious for most of the Toronto Blue Jays fans that have been watching this back half of the season. But he also goes in to say that it's been the highlight of the second half of the season for me, for everyone else in the room, and the rest of the rotation. You can tell that all the Toronto Blue Jays starting rotation guys are pretty good buddies. Obviously, we talked about Bowdin and Chris Bassitt. Bassitt being a little bit of a mentor for him, teaching him how to throw that splitter that has completely turned around Bowdin Francis' debatably career, you could say. So Bowdin's obviously very good friends with Bassitt. Obviously, Kevin Gausman is boys with all those veterans in there. I would say Yari Rodriguez might be the odd one out in a sense, just because he is new to the Toronto Blue Jays. But for the most part, that Toronto Blue Jays rotation is very tight. So it's awesome to see them kind of come together and just get excited for a 2025 Toronto Blue Jays season.
I mean, that's what you want to see, right? As a one nation baseball team, you want to see the guys sort of being united, right? We've seen that with Davis Schneider and Ernie and Vlad and Bo and all those guys, right? Playing for each other and talking and showing us that they want to play for each other. And I think that's a huge component for this baseball team. And hopefully moving forward, that's, we just get to see more of it.
Absolutely. So I only got a couple more things here. I just want to give a shout out to Alejandro Kirk, 16 game hitting streak, another double for the kid, longest active streak in the AL. This guy's having himself a little bit of a post All-Star break, starting to hit the ball on a rope like he was back in 2022, getting the barrel percentage back up, hitting line drives. It's what you need Alejandro Kirk to do. I don't know if I'm buying him in the cleanup spot necessarily or in the 5 spot. I guess I will still take, but when the guy has like a 350 to 400 slugging, not necessarily something you want in the cleanup spot, but with the Toronto Blue Jays where they're at with this their depth chart and their roster, can't really blame them. Going into Dalton Varsho, he's gotten shut down for the season on the 60-day IL. Makes sense. I mean, no point in bringing Dalton Varsho back if you have any sort of injury whatsoever. No point in playing these games. Chris Bassitt pretty much said it himself in that quote he said earlier or yesterday that these games don't really matter. And we've known that for a long time. The players have probably known that for a decent amount of time as well. So, again, can't take too much away from that. Last thing I have is Danny Jansen coming back, standing ovation in this game. Obviously got the video tribute in that last game. Definitely deserved. I mean, one of the longest Blue Jays tenured players at that point, him and Tim Mays obviously both being moved. Jansen, just a fan favorite. Definitely, I love seeing that guy. It's tough to see him come back to the Rogers Center. Hopefully he maybe he can pull a little bit of a move on the Boston Red Sox here. Maybe he signs back with the Toronto Blue Jays, get that tandem reunited. What a storyline that would be for the Toronto Blue Jays, just screwing over the Boston Red Sox.
You know what? I always made that joke, right? Guys who get traded at the deadline and then just decide, I just want to be a Blue Jay again and come back. Oh my goodness. Wouldn't that be a heartwarming story there for Danny Jansen? And I don't think necessarily it was, a shot at him to be moved. I think it was teams wanted him because they saw the value in Danny Jansen. And I think there's value to come, but I don't want to discredit Alejandro Kirk either. And, because he has been playing well. And I think the more time he's gotten, like I said yesterday, the more time he's gotten, the better he's looked. So in saying that, Carter, yeah, but great moment for Danny. And we'll see what happens here in 2024, 2025. In saying that, guys, it's been a heck of a week so far, sort of just information all the time. Make sure you guys drop that subscribe button. We always talk about it. It really, really does help us out. We appreciate it so much. And it keeps the news coming to you guys all the time. So there you go. If we appreciate you guys making us your first listen, make sure if you want to make somebody your second listen, go check out Locked On MLB with host Paul Sullivan. Sully. Also, just another shout out. We're going live Sunday, opening pitch of the final game, game 162. So make sure you're tuned in. And we'll just talk. We'll chat. We'll, discuss some stuff of 2024, 2025, whatever you sort of want it to be. That's what it'll be. We're just going to have some fun and watch the final game. Carter, my man, I think other than that, I'm ready to get out of here.
Yeah, I don't got too much to add. Just going to end off with this. 4 games left of Toronto Blue Jays baseball. Try and enjoy it as best you can. They're not really making it too easy to enjoy it here with this little losing streak they're going on. But again, when we're going to be in the winter, we're going to be wishing for Toronto Blue Jays baseball. Just want to say one more time, thank you guys for watching. The likes, comments, support. Everything recently has been much appreciated. We appreciate you guys sticking around for the rest of this Toronto Blue Jays season, even though they're not providing us with great baseball. But saying that, we'll be back with you guys tomorrow.